The general election is now just 6 days away, and the tightest race for the first congressional seat is here. Polls show that incumbent Republican Charles Dejoux and Democrat Colleen Hanabusa are in a statistical dead heat. Representative Dejoux is scheduled to be on our morning news tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And right now, we'd like to welcome Colleen Hanabusa. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mahi.
Yeah, no problem. So you see the polls, it's so close. Why do you think the race is so tight right now?
You know, I think part of it is just the nature of polls and whether they're polled from the mainland and here, there's always been different challenges. But I also believe it's because people realize that this is a very important race and people are engaged and people are listening. I
wanted to show off a magazine cover, a Newsweek. The latest cover shows that change is coming again, and it's a sort of a take from 2008.
Right.
It shows a minority leader, Boehner, on the cover there. It's supposed to look like the Obama cover of 2008. And, you know, independents helped elect Democrats in 2008, including President Obama. But now they're leaning toward the Republican side. Why do you think this is happening, and is it difficult to get your message out? Should Democrats change the way they're managing the country at this point?
You know, I think that it's always, you're going to have some reaction, some pushback, and it's always easier to be no, and it's always easier not to have to push an agenda forward. So I think that's part of it. But I also think that there was a problem in Washington that they weren't messaging and they weren't explaining what they were doing correctly. Now that you're beginning to see the swing back, and that's the reason why you see so many negative ads in Hawaii, because all of a sudden this race seems to be very critical nationally, where I think the Republicans just assumed that they were going to take over the House. But I think people are beginning to listen, and people are beginning to say, hey, you know, what would have happened if they didn't do TARP? What would have happened if we didn't do the Health Care Reform Act? What would have happened if we didn't do unemployment, if we didn't do stimulus? Where would we all be? And I think as people start to think about the consequences of all of that, they're beginning to say, well, you know, it is hard to do the right thing. It is hard to keep the people first. And in Hawaii, it is hard to just say, Hawaii's first, the people of Hawaii comes first, and then to continue that agenda.
Speaking of attack ads, you know, the GOP has that new TV ad out right now, and it's accusing your then fiancé, now husband, of getting a sweetheart deal after you advocated for tax breaks for the Jeff Stone Ko'olina Aquarium. Can you set the record straight on that ad?
You know, there was absolutely no break or no sweetheart deal, and we've already gone through this. You can go and compare the sales, and you know, we've said this time and time again, but as you know, the history of the attack ads from the GOP and part of the ads even from my own opponent is clear. They don't care what the facts are. They don't care if they violate copyright. They don't care if they sound exactly like a national ad that comes in. You know, their taglines are all the same. They just either get caught on it, they're told with your fact checks, hey, this is not correct. It's like, well, so, too bad.
Yeah, and just really quickly, you know, both you and your opponent say that you're independent thinkers and you will not necessarily vote according to your party. Is there one bill in Congress right now that the Democrats are supporting that you would not support?
You know, the one bill that I feel that we really got to look at is the position on the wars. Because, you know, originally I was always against the war in Iraq, and I thought, well, you know, we'll support the president on Afghanistan. But I got to tell you, depending on what happens then in terms of a continuation of the funding in Afghanistan, given what you're hearing about President Karzai and now his deals with Iran, if that were to be up there, I'm not sure that I would support the continuation of any efforts in Afghanistan.
All right, Colleen Hanabusa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And good luck in the next few days. And again, Charles Dejoux will be on our air at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And if you'd like to see this interview again or view any of our segments from our morning news, you can go to kitv.com/thismorning.